conference being held in Mangaung next month mean for the average South African? Good question, I imagine. Who are its influential players, and what happens at Mangaung will impact on our everyday lives, whatever our political affiliations are, and that's a reality. These are some of the questions and explanations given in the book Mangaung, Kings and Kingmakers, written by Mandy Rossouw. The book focuses on 8 people. Those are President Jacob Zuma, Cyril Ramaphosa, Tokyo Sekwale, and Fikile Mbalula, just to name a few. Their background and their role beyond the Mangaung conference is also discussed. Mandy's in studio to tell us more about this book. Good to have you, Mandy. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Leanne.
What made you do something like this?
You know, I found that in my job as a journalist, which is my day job, lots of people find that they read the stories in the paper, but they don't actually understand the processes behind it. And therefore, I thought it was a good idea to sort of put out what the processes are all about, who are the main players, how it all works, and possibly what might happen at Mangaung. And I think that people find that it's sort of a guide, a pocket guide to Mangaung. You know, if you go there, or if you're watching it on TV, or you're listening to it on the radio, you have this with you, and you can quickly use it as a reference to see how exactly things should turn out.
So it's kind of the idiot's guide to Mangaung.
It's
I mean, that's probably the best way to describe it.
It's exactly that. My publishers didn't want me to call it that, but it's exactly
but
that.
That's exactly it, and it's what we need. I mean, I've been reading it since I received it this morning, and I've been turning the pages because it's just been taking things and making them clear. And I imagine that's what you're trying to get from what happened in Polokwane all the way to what's happening now.
Exactly. It's a recent history that hasn't been written up yet in such a way, and it was so much fun to remember what happened at Polokwane, and then for me to remember, you know, all the processes that went down after that and the effect that it's had. So the idea is not to do high-level analysis and give an opinion on what I think happened, but rather say, look, this is, you know, as a journalist, I get a lot of access, I get a lot of behind-the-scenes kind of information, and this is a way for me to present that in a way that's accessible to ordinary people who might be interested in politics, but don't necessarily follow every nitty-gritty detail of it.
Yeah. It's quite interesting how you've highlighted these 8 people that are really the key people to be following. And the one that jumps out at me right at the bottom is Julius Malema, and it's described here on the release saying how he changed the ANC for good.
Definitely. Look, Julius Malema did things to the party which had never done before. And I think that the party is now scrambling to try and contain the effect of Julius Malema. For instance, nationalization will be a big issue to be discussed at Mangaung. And that's something that comes from him, whether you want it or not. So I think that what Malema did was to basically say to the party, listen, this is what people on the ground want, and this is what we should do about it. And I want to be the person leading that process. Of course, that's not the case anymore, but he definitely planted a seed which is still growing within the party.
Yeah. You know, it seems, well, from the conclusions that you're drawn in this book, and these are conclusions drawn that Jacob Zuma is going to be the ANC president once again for the next term coming.
I think at this point, unless something huge happens, it will be a big surprise if Jacob Zuma doesn't return as president. He's got the numbers, he certainly has got all his ducks in a row, and I think that Mangaung will say, look, you know, let's give this guy another term.
However, the deputy presidency is the one that's being contested now. What are your predictions here?
That's the interesting one. You'll see that Cyril Ramaphosa is coming up as a deputy president candidate. Yesterday, the Women's League announced that they want him, as well as KwaZulu-Natal, which is, of course, the biggest voting bloc at Mangaung. So I think that there will be a bit of a tight contest, and I think that Kgalema Motlanthe will need to decide whether he even wants to enter that contest, given that he might lose.
Just finally, why is Mangaung so important to South Africans? Because at the end of the day, there are a lot of despondent South Africans out there that feel, you know, we don't really get to elect or have anything to do with this. It's 4,000 people that are gathered in a room that are going to determine our future, and they don't find this fair. Why is it important for us to watch?
Well, it's important because we, whatever happens at Mangaung will affect our everyday lives. The policies that are being discussed there, that are being decided on there, will affect our everyday lives. If you look at Polokwane, for instance, there was a lot of talk about press regulation. And that was something which we as journalists had to fight very hard in the past 5 years. And we've gotten to a point now where the press had said, fine, we'll do our job a bit better. And the government and the ANC has said, okay, we will tone down on the regulation. So it's very important for us to look at what Mangaung is going to say, because it's the kind of thing that will have a very direct influence on the rest of our lives.
All right, Mandy, great work. In bookstores around the country?
Yes.
Yeah, this is it. It's almost like a pocket guide, if one could say that, to Mangaung that's going to be happening next month. Kings and Kingmakers. You decide for yourself. Read it. Mandy Rossouw has dissected this all for us. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thanks, Leanne.